Hi everyone, Dr. Steve Rasner here, and welcome back to the Lionhearted Dentist. I've had a lot of emails lately. I have. And I've made a lot of calls, and some of you listening certainly know that's true because I called you. And I've tried to help a number of my viewers out. And I'm only telling you that because that's why I do this show. It is. I've thought about why do I do this? I'm so ridiculously honest about things that I don't know that I have to say them or not. I just say things. I just do. I thought in the beginning it would be a fun way to share my 40 years with you before you get to 40 years, right? And I also thought, honestly, it would spin off people into my courses, which it does. It does. But it's not enough because I've been doing this so long that when the docs come in to take my live courses, they come from so many sources that it's kind of hard to say it's because of my podcast and stuff. So when you write to me, you let me know that you're listening. And that's why I do this. Listen, I don't know how they rank these podcasts. I assure you that I'm not in the top of the podcast ranking list. But I know this. I know the information I give you every week is gold. And I know that those of you that actually take action, which is not enough of you, you know what I'm telling you every week works. So I was going to shake you up this week and say some things audacious, but I'm not. I'm just going to repeat some things that in a different voice and a different form that maybe I'll get you to take action, right? And the things I want to talk about, we're going to call this podcast, What Procedures Did You Do Last Week? What procedures? I'm talking to you on a Thursday right now. That's my final day of the week, by the way. Okay? You ever want to know what my operations look like? Can I tell you this right now? Some of you hear bits and pieces of it. You hear the numbers sometimes that I espouse. Maybe you wonder, well, how does he do that? Does he have... Okay, I can tell you how. I work 4 days a week. I work Monday through Thursday. I literally never work later than 5. And I personally start my patients at 9, somewhere between 9 and 10. Sometimes between 9 and 10, I have post-op evaluations and checks. I have hygienists, 3 of them, 2 days a week. And the other 2, I have 2. I have 7 total operatories. Now, I have a second office. I've never really made that clear. That was my actual first office, the one that I haven't been to in 10 or 12 years. It's only 20 minutes from my violent office. And Lord, if you don't mind me telling you, I was in that office for 30 years. I had maximized every inch of it. There was nowhere else to do anything. We used every millimeter of that office. And, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but I ended up starting a second practice 20 minutes from the first one. But I want you to know that first practice did over $4 million by itself on exactly the parameters I just gave you. The second practice, which is by far the more successful practice today, is where I presently am. And that practice, as you've heard my numbers, so I'm not going to repeat them. The Bridgeton office, my original office, contributes about 20% of the numbers you hear me talk about. And that's a regular kind of, I'll put it, normal functioning dental office. There's 1 associate, 2 hygienists, not even every day. And the total staff there is 6 people. It does $1 million a year. And Vineland does about 4.5. My office alone. I don't know why. I'm just wanted to. This is what I really want to talk about tonight. What procedures did you do last week? Because when I define success, and right, that's what I talk about. I try to talk about success with you each and every week on some tangent, right? To me, I'll tell you what success is. And I've said this in many of my lectures. Success is working when you want to work and not working when you don't want to work because you can afford it. And my colleagues and friends, I've had it both ways. Early in my career, I can remember being in so much debt that I really couldn't take significant time off because the office would crash and dive if I wasn't there. The numbers would completely fall apart. And I had such a litany of bills because I've alluded to this before. I had multiple homes. I've told you to keep your credit scores high and your credit cards low, except if you're borrowing for CE. That's the exception I would make if I wound it back and I was getting out of dental school tomorrow. That said, I would live under my means with regards to a car, which I did not do, with regards to the house that I live in, everything. I would. And I know that that's the common denominator that you will run into when you meet dentists in your career that seem like they've reached a lofty financial security early in life. They all did what I just said. They lived below their means. They paid off their debts. They paid cash for a lot of the things that they acquired. I didn't do that. You know what I would do? I would figure out what it would cost me monthly, a car, a piece of equipment. I'm telling you what not to do right now. You know what we're doing right now, you and I? We're out after Thursday. We worked all week, and we went across to the next place, and then we were having a beer, you and I. That's why I'm off on a couple tangents. Stay with me. I got good stuff here. And, you know, I would figure out what it cost me monthly. And so what's a new car cost in 1990 or 2000? Even if it was $1,000 a month, I mean, a really nice car. Well, I would justify that by saying it's $1,000 a month. Of course, I can add that to my budget. And I would do that with everything. And it's true. I did afford it. But you know who made a fortune off Steve Rasner in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s? The banks. Oh my God, did I pay a lot of interest. Don't do that. I mean, I have such a profoundly productive office that I overcame some really bad cornerstones to be successful in life. And if I had it, and look, here's the problem with that. You could say right now, well, who cares, Steve? You had a good time. And there is a side of me that says that. I lived big. But it was stressful. It was stressful that way. I couldn't do a lot. I missed a lot. I'm telling you, I did. I missed a lot of watching my children grow up because I was working too many hours and late. And, you know, when I was at work, I loved it. I did. But that's not a balanced life. That's not success. Success is those dentists that are listening right now that, hell, they take a week off or 10 days, 2 weeks off, and they go backpacking or whatever suits their fancy because they can afford it. That's the key, man. Because you can afford, and part of that is setting up your office intelligently so it can flow and make money without you, which is easier today than it was 30 years ago, to be honest with you. So that's my blueprint to start. It's working on your own terms is another way of saying that. And all of that is very much connected to your cost of living, of course. But to me, and to many of Lionhearted dentists listening, I know you measure your success. So one way to measure it is doing things outside of dentistry, as I just discussed, and being able to afford that, right? Another thing is, well, what did you do at work? With no disrespect to some of the finest clinicians in the industry that teach how to do amazing direct composite anything, veneers, posterior composites. I mean, I know that their classrooms are filled. If that's what all dentistry was to me, I would have never made it more than 10 years. It wouldn't have. I just want to tell you some things I did this week, and you need to know that these words are coming off a dentist that graduated in the bottom fifth of his class. I mean, how much more patent can I be with you? It's not fun for me to tell you that because it sounds like I'm dumb or something. And it is what it is. That's the truth. But this week, just this random week, I've never done this with you before. I look back and what did I do this week? Well, I took a tooth out that I'm going to place an implant in on Monday. And I had a CT scan of it, my own CT, of course. And when I got in there was no buccal or palatal wall. It was number 13. Would you know what to do with that? Very few of you would. You can't just graft that, guys. So I put a titanium mesh on the buccal and the lingual. I stabilized that mesh with Profix screws. That's from Osteogenics. I mixed my allograft, which is bone, mixed it with something called Gem 21. And there's a lot of things which has growth factors in it. But the bigger your defect, the more you need. And the point is this. I do this stuff all the time. I will forget 4 months from now when I open that back up, the details. But I learned all that, not by hoping for it or wishing for it. Quite honestly, I learned most of that from Mike Pico's in Tampa, Florida. I spent many, many weekends, immeasurable, incalculable. I can't even begin to make up a number for you to learn that stuff. The guy that was graduated last in his class. I also did a post-op check on a free gingival graft I did from 21 to 28. And I'd gladly, challenge me. Say, hey, Raz, can I see the photos of that? Because I have beautiful photos to show you. I'm not saying I'm great. I'm saying that's the possibilities for all of us. And I got to tell you something. I'm a little spoiled because I've had this happen for so many years because I've been doing such procedures for so many years. To me, a lot of my success is defined by the things I'm able to do. And they will be for you too. It's got to be more, guys. It's got to be, I'm talking all surgeries. I know that. And if that doesn't appeal to you, then maybe your own magic is in root canals or orthodontics, of course. A lot of my GP colleagues are fabulous at that. But I also did a vestibuloplasty on a patient with a compromised vestibule that's just getting a denture. Multiple guided surgeries this week. Multiple freehand implant placement. Inserts, combination. You know how cool it is when you can insert a partial denture? The patient has 4 teeth and you supplement the 4 teeth with 4 implants in the form of whatever you want it to be. Zest locators. I did multiple units of crown and bridge, the same stuff that we learned in dental school. But you know what's cool? All the procedures I just mentioned to you, and the reason I'm telling you all that is because every one of those procedures, from the titanium mesh GBR I did, to the vestibuloplasty, to the guided surgeries, hours and hours of training that to me are worth it. You're in it. You are in it, aren't you? So why wouldn't you do everything you can, and I know I've said this before, to be the very best you every week, every day? You know how cool it is. Even when you do 1 implant, your first especially, it is such a rush over all the other dentistry, in my opinion, that you could ever do. It's a greater rush than putting in a fantastic before and after case, of which I'm a GP, so we do that too. And I know if Steve Rasner can do this, everybody listening can do it. Not without a commitment of training, of course. And I'm telling you this tonight because I think back before I go on air with you, and I think, what was it about this week? I mean, we also did 100K this week. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you're sick of me saying that to you, or it's not even a thing that I don't have a production goal anywhere in my office. Literally not. Not in my break room, not in my private office. I never did. What I did is grow over the years. That's true. You know, and I can remember when we did $500,000 a year. I do. And I certainly remember breaking $1 million and then $2 million. And I probably don't remember all in between and how I got. I do remember $4 million too. And why we're talking about that, in case you're tuning in for the first time and think I'm just this complete maniac or whatever, a worse word than that, because all I'm talking about is money. I know that a successful practice has allowed me to do amazing community things that I would never just been able to do. Every single year, twice a year, for over 20 years, my office did something big in our community. I don't mean that we went down to the local rec center and provided dentistry for a morning. We took homeless shelters and their children and rented a bus an hour away, because that's where South Jersey is from Philadelphia, to see Walt Disney on Ice. Hosted Thanksgiving, Christmas dinners, where people, my staff would dress up, Santa Claus, elves, whatever. Multiple dances and proms and events for the mentally challenged community. A whole day picnic. Many times. I mean, I didn't film them, but I hired a crew a couple times for many of these events, and I would gladly send them to any of you that asked for them. I'd have to send it through a hightail application, because it's a lot to send through an email. It'll give you chills. I often show some of these things at the presentations I've given. So if you're hearing me tonight, I'm asking you to ask yourself, well, what is success for you? None of us are going to argue with my first definition. Why wouldn't you want to work? More importantly, why wouldn't you want to be off and afford to be off when you could be? You're, number one, this is how it's going to go, guys. You're going to want to be there in the memorable times for your children. I know that I attract a very wide range of doctors that listen to me. Those coming right out of school, those of you with young children. You're never getting those years back, dude. and dudeses. And there's no better advice I could ever give you than to treatment plan your life professionally and personally so you don't miss it. But at the same time, you're becoming this very accomplished professional that is in demand, think about what I'm saying, in your community. You are proud to be a dentist in the community that you're in, and you know your reputation's impeccable. By the way, that doesn't mean you please everyone. But come on, guys, can we really be honest tonight? At the end of the day, you listen to me right now. Who sees your crown margins better than you do? Do you look? Do you blow air? Is it bone dry so you can really see the margins before you scan it or before you take a hard impression? What about when you put your cases in? How much diligence do you do to that? And so you chose the right profession. That's not even a question mark for me. The question you have to ask yourself is, have you given enough of yourself to be this, to have this kind of professional week that I'm alluding to? It is work. I mean, it's not going to happen if you go from dental school and take courses online all the time and you have a good-looking face and personality. No, you're never going to reach this that way. Nor should you. Nothing in life that I know of comes without hard work. If I had it to do over, I would have had more balance. I promise you that. But I would have been able to take all the courses I took. I just would have had more discipline on the times I got home, on the, you know what I'm talking about. There's so many activities to be involved with your children once they start school. And it goes so fast. You do not want to miss it. You do not want to wake up a year and a half before they go to college, because once they go to college, it's a whole different ballgame, guys. Remember, you and I are out right now, right? We're out after our 4-day week at work, and we're talking to each other. And I said, what did you do this week? Does that feel good? Maybe it does for you. Doesn't have to be surgery like mine. How did it feel when you walked down the hallway or when you finished your treatments? Did it feel like you were, from your patients, respected and appreciated? Or did you feel like they think you ripped them off? That's happened to me before. Not in a very, very long time. But that's an awful feeling. So we're talking about all these things that add up to this 7-letter word called success. Is it 7? Right? Being profitable, being respected in your community by your patients. It's funny because I just took a vacation. And I didn't take enough of them in my career. I didn't. I told you that already. I can't tell you, there's not one patient. I went to Africa, as you know, because I did a podcast from Africa. There's not one patient that didn't make me feel like, oh my God, I'm so happy you took off, Doc. That is great. Did you love it? You need to do that more. That is the banter. That is the relationship that we have built over the years of trust, of dedication, I had a patient in my chair today, right at the end of the day, that had a crown I did in 2017. It had recurrent decay. I told my hygienist to put her on my schedule. I'm doing it over. No charge. You might think I'm crazy because it's, 17 to now is 5 years. She's a good patient. She's had a lot of work done by me. Implants. I think I dropped the ball on that day on that tooth. She never misses hygiene. That's how if it was a patient that missed multiple, you know what I'm talking about, multiple visits over the years, that's an entirely different story. If it was a patient that had poor hygiene, poor diet, all the things that you and I come across, probably a different story. But I didn't hesitate because I can't prove it, but I think that one's on me. I don't know. Maybe the margins weren't as good as they should have been. Something went wrong. And I know there's a lot of colleagues of mine that completely would disagree with that approach. But that is my approach. If they're a great patient, I think something should last more than 5 years. I certainly do. Great patients meaning they're coming for regular hygiene and stuff. So, you know what else we did this week besides a vestibuloplasty, free gingival grafts, guided surgery? I did a ton of free stuff that I didn't have to do. And that's part of being a Lionhearted dentist to me. And I've told you that. I told you that every week. Well, it's every day. See, I work productively from 9 or 10, one of the two, till 3. That means all new production, a new implant, extractions, crown and bridge. And from 3 to 4:30 or 5, it may be something that I have to repair or do better, or something gratuitous. Because I can. And yeah, that's part of feeling good about yourself, right? And if you got yourself in a hot mess, which I've been in before, and you're just worried about payroll due next week and the rent, and, oh my God, it's such a bad place to live. Let me tell you how bad it was for me once. It was so bad, I don't have to tell you this, that I couldn't get a bank to loan money to me anymore. So there's people out there, they're not loan sharks, but that are illegal, but they should be. There's actually organizations out there that will loan people with poor credit money, and they'll attach it to your bank account. So they take it out of your account every single day. And it's at like 36%. Yeah, me, who certainly is in a good place, I certainly don't have to work anymore. I do it because all the other success things that I've been discussing with you, giving back, doing gratuitous work, doing challenging, meaningful dentistry that many would describe to be above the normal realm of a GP, makes me feel like nothing else can make me feel. And, I still have my physical abilities to do it. So that's why I do it. But I want you to know, those of you that aren't at a good place, I was not at a good place. And I told you over the last couple of months that little by little, I will share with you some of my challenges. And those challenges happened because I don't give a damn if you make $1 million a year if you spend $1.2 million a year. That is why you hear me allude so many times to what you might think is a very conservative, dull, certainly not a sexy approach to a lifestyle. You can find a good balance, my friends. So the takeaway from this week for you, everything I told you came from CE. It's another way of me asking you to ask yourself when you're going to start the process. Because that's where it comes from. You just don't know these procedures otherwise. It is why I formed my institute, because I knew there's a big space between taking didactic courses, classroom courses on surgery or grafting like I have, or implant dentistry and actually taking that next step. I know a lot of you listening have completed implant curriculums and you didn't get out there soon enough. And then a year turned into 5 years, and it feel, all that stuff you learned in the classroom and in the labs and the models you worked on kind of feels far gone. That's why we created my institute. And I got to thank New Jersey and God, for the amazing opportunity to spend with many of you and fill in that gap so you do know how to do at least surgical dentistry. I hope you enjoyed our beer together this week. I certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. And look, guys, I don't know how this comes off on camera or over my voice over your car, wherever you're listening. My only intent is to make it better for you, because 40 years later, I love what I do. And it'd be one thing if I was always number one in my class and I said, you could do it too. And no, I'm one of you, man. I just worked really hard. And that's what Lionhearted dentists do. See you next week on the Lionhearted.